everyone, it's Dana, the owner and developer of Form Check Plus. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about facing adversity and dealing with doubt. I'm going to share a little bit about my experience with both what I did at the time and then what I wish I knew moving forward, and how I would kind of attack adversity, setbacks, whatever you're dealing with, if you're feeling down in the dumps or whatever, how I would deal with that now. And also how the Form Check Plus app can help you a little bit with mindset tools like that. So to start out, like I shared before, have never really had a huge support system. So I do have somewhat of a big family, but they're kind of like spread all around the country at the time being. And growing up, because a lot of them, a couple of my uncles live locally, but the other ones are kind of like 3 or 4 hours away. So while I do have a big family, they're spread out. So it wasn't like your family attends all of your sporting events or all your events, period. It was kind of just a lot of times me, my mom, and my dad growing up, and like any kind of pet we had. So anything from like a fish. I used to have a pet rat that I named Doris from the Home Alone 3 movie. I don't know if you've seen that one, but the kid had a mouse that was named Doris, so that was my inspiration for that. Kind of funny. They don't make movies like that anymore. I wish they did. But so yeah, my support system was really just my parents for the most part, because at school and stuff I didn't always have the biggest support system. So growing up, kindergarten, I wouldn't say there was a lot of pushback in kindergarten or a lot of adversity that I faced. The only thing that I will say is I was at a bit of a disadvantage because of my age. So everybody essentially was a year ahead of me, because I was like the youngest person in my class. So I was the last one to make that cutoff for New York State before you got pushed ahead of grade. So I got very lucky, beat the cutoff, but I was the youngest one. So just being the youngest, by default, you kind of have a little bit more, I guess maybe not so much of a hard time, but I think you definitely get treated a little bit differently because you're the youngest and therefore the least experienced. Maybe people think you don't know anything, or like, oh, you're so young, like I'm better than you because I'm older, that type of kid stuff. But I can't really think of too much adversity that I faced in kindergarten, maybe because it was so long ago, but that's all I can pretty much remember with that. First grade was my very first setback. So what's really crazy, because of the fact that I do have a bachelor's, a master's, and a law degree. Fun fact, when I was in first grade, I couldn't read that well. I was below the reading comprehension level that I should have been at that point. So I was getting extra homework, which was reading. My teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, she would send like different packets or like these little booklets. I don't have anything that looks like that now, to kind of show you what it would look like, but it was kind of like a little packet. So we get like a packet book, or like I don't even know what it's called. But anyway, it was like this folder type thing that had like Velcro, a little piece of Velcro like this, and you would open it up and there'd be these little books in there. So everybody would get that, but I would get a little bit extra because I wasn't reading at whatever the reading comprehension level was, or wasn't reading fast enough. So I just had a reading problem, basically. So I got sent home extra reading homework, and my mom would sit down with me every night after all the other homework was done and just focus on reading. She would read me books, I would read if I could, and we constantly just worked on that. And then we had like, I think maybe meetings, but I'm not sure, like the parent-teacher meeting that every kid usually has. And she would sit down with my mom, the teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, and tell her like how I was doing, whatever. And that was the very first person I would say that was influential in my life. Mrs. Reynolds, she didn't hesitate to help me. She wanted to see me succeed, and she wanted to help me so that I could be on par with the rest of the people in my class. So she was the first person I would say, other than my parents, that was kind of my biggest supporter, dealing with that first piece of adversity right there, and a setback in a way. I still moved on to second grade in time with the rest of my class, but again, like from the earliest stage, I would say that's probably my first setback. And I think I can remember one more actually earlier than that. So believe it or not, like when I was born, I guess I like sat up or something in the hospital and like looked around. So I've always been very alert, and I have very good like large motor skills, so like that correlates to like lifting, sports, stuff like that, but I didn't have the fine motor skills. So like, I don't know, maybe like reading, writing, well not reading, but like writing or like putting puzzles together. And they said that there was like something wrong with me because of that, but so that was like earlier on, but that wasn't really much of an issue. I kind of just like did stuff with my mom, I think, to overcome that. I'm not really sure, but it never ended up being a huge problem. So the reading, I can definitely say 100% was like the first time I faced adversity. So I just kept reading and reading and reading, and then eventually when I got older, I was actually speed reading and reading big, huge books, like thick books that Stephen King wrote. I don't remember what the one was called. It was like One Summer. It was a very good book. I think it was called The Host, I think. It wasn't, I don't think that one was by Stephen King, but there was a very good Stephen King book that I read. That's a story for later on. So I would say that was my first time that I dealt with adversity. And then second grade, I don't think that there was much in second grade that I dealt with. Third grade is the next one. So I couldn't tell time, and I couldn't count coins. True story. I thought if you had a quarter, a nickel, and a dime, that was 3 cents, because there was 3 different coins there. So I couldn't count, which I guess that goes to the fact that I went to law school because I'm not good at math. Numbers are not my game, especially trying to figure out how much weight is on the bar. So that was a problem, and then also I couldn't really tell time either. So there's 5 minutes in between like the number 1 and the number 2. And again, I would count the numbers as 1 to 6 as 6 minutes. So that's really 30 minutes, but I said that like there was 6 minutes until gym or something at that point. And this kid, I remember, his name was Luke, he was from the Netherlands. He looked at me like, there's way more than 6 minutes until gym. But that was a problem because I couldn't count. I'm not really sure, to be honest, how I overcame that one. I think that's obviously a setback because you have to be able to count, but I can't really think of how I fixed that other than just being told by my third grade teacher that that was wrong, and like sitting down and trying to fix that, and then having a couple of my friends like help me out with that. But other than that, nothing there. Fourth grade, no setbacks. Fifth grade was the last year before middle school. Definitely had a couple things there. So I had a teacher who, I don't know like what was wrong with her or whatever, but for whatever reason she was like very mean to people. She was not nice whatsoever. I don't really know. Maybe it's just her natural disposition. Maybe she just wasn't happy at that point in time in her life, but she was not nice. So me being the person that I am, just getting stuff done, staying on target, being very organized, having a set list of things that I need to get done, especially, you know, with sports that I was playing at the time. Not very serious. It was kind of just like a rec league. It wasn't a school sport at that point because you couldn't start school sports until middle school, which was 6th grade. So that was my next setback because the teacher yelled at me, admonished me like a judge would in court to an attorney, in front of the entire class, and was like, Dana, this is not a race, because I finished my work before everybody else because I wanted to go to recess, but I also knew what I was doing. So she made me feel very embarrassed, and I kind of sunk down in my seat after that, was still able to go to recess, but she just kind of screamed at me because I got my work done faster than everybody else because I was smart and knew what I was doing. So I went home that day and told my mom about it, and she was like, you gotta be kidding me. She wrote a note to the teacher for me to bring the next day, and I think she might have written her an email as well. And then the teacher formally apologized to me and also apologized to my mom. And my mom's very disorganized, so it's kind of funny that I'm not. Maybe I learned from her not to be, but her desk at work has papers all over the place. But somehow she is able to function like that. Me, it would drive me completely AWOL. I cannot be like that. But my mom was like, well, I'm actually glad that she's like that because I'm not. And while my mom does get things done on time, she's just not very organized like I am. So she was actually happy that I'm organized. So that was a problem because obviously, like, what are you supposed to do? You're a kid in 5th grade. Like, if you talk back, you're going to be sent to the principal's office or something, even though you were ridiculed, embarrassed, and put down for getting your work done. So me being like, I guess I'm not really shy, but just didn't want to speak up, kind of just took the negativity and kind of just sat there. Now, if that was me today, I definitely would have said something and stood up for myself. So that's how I would have attacked that or approached that differently today. But being in 5th grade, like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell my mom, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you're in 5th grade, who else are you going to tell, really, other than your parents? So that was a problem. Then comes 6th grade. Things started to heat up, things started to get serious. My 6th grade English teacher, she always marked me down on just like writing assignments and stuff, and she would tell me, oh, that's all I think that you're worth, and would just kind of, I would just get like a less than everybody else in the class, even though English was always my strong suit. Now, that was a problem and a setback and a place where I dealt with adversity because of the fact that, like, what is going on here? It kind of seemed like the teacher was a little prejudicious to me over everybody else, and my mom also had a discussion with me at a parent-teacher conference with that teacher, but she ended up saying the same thing. So that was not a fun time at all. And then that was not the only problem in 6th grade. The other problem was, again, math strikes again. So math's never been my strong suit, but I really, really struggled in 6th grade math and oftentimes missed recess, which I found out wasn't really supposed to happen. In New York State, kids are supposed to get recess, regardless of whether they have work to do or not. But I would miss recess because we had these math packet things, so it'd be like a couple of sheets of paper with a bunch of different math problems, all kind of stuff that you were working on at the time. So you'd get them at like the start of the week, they'd be due at the end of the week. They had a checkbox on the side of each problem. I knew this, I had help, or I guessed. So you have to check the box, you also have to show your work. And because math wasn't my strong suit, I often failed those. So I would get like 60s on those. Now 70 was passing. So if you got a 60, you had to stay inside for recess and make corrections on your math packet enough to pass at a 70. So again, that wasn't really legal, but it happened. Because you're not supposed to be withheld from recess in New York. But years ago, just gotta flush it, forget about it. So I remember I wasn't even getting help with math. I was just sitting there asking my friends because the teacher was not very approachable, and she was like, well, you need to ask your friends first before you come and ask me. And the entire classroom was filled with people because nobody understood what the heck they were doing. They were kind of just guessing, or like everybody would kind of sit and copy someone else who got that question right's answer, and then just checking the box like I had help, even though essentially you cheated, but you just kind of took your friend's work, used it as your own, whatever. So I guess it's not technically cheating if your friend helped you with it, but you kind of just sat there and copied people's stuff to correct your math packet and go to recess. But again, many, many times there were so many corrections that the teacher could only see and check so many people's math packets. So by the time recess was done, you completely missed it and still had corrections to make. So you would have to take it home for homework or get extra help after school, which happened to me a lot. But the problem with that was that there wasn't really a lot of help. So the teacher could explain something to you, but you might not get it. And then you just continue along that path of not understanding what you're doing, so that when you go to higher levels of math, you don't have a good grasp on it because you couldn't even get the basics from years ago. So there was 2 math teachers in high school that actually solidified math for me or made it make sense. But I just saw this as a problem at the time because I wasn't learning anything. Like, obviously I'm trying to work on something that's my absolute weak point, which is math, but the teacher wasn't that effective. Maybe there's other people that understood it because they're just good at math, or maybe their brain works mathematically, but mine didn't. So I always struggled, and even through college, honestly, with math. So again, why I went to law school and why I took philosophy and history in college is because I'm not good at math. Like, I could never see myself as a math teacher or professor ever. So that was very crazy, but I got through it, and that was just by like getting the extra help with friends or whatever on those math packets, and then kind of just trying to do my best on every test and stuff to just get my grades up to that passing mark. which I did. I don't think I ever failed that class, but it was definitely like an average-ish grade or a tad below average for math. And then moving on to 7th grade, can't really think of any like adversity or problems that I dealt with in 7th grade. That was a good grade. 8th grade, same thing. Again, struggled with math a little bit, but there wasn't really that much stuff that I was facing. Then once I got to high school, kind of changed the game completely, because you're on your own a little bit more. You've got more responsibilities. Also with sports, you've got to try to, what do you call it? Excuse me, I'm having a brain fog. You've got to keep up with your schoolwork, but also go to practices, games, and stuff like that. And my school was pretty big on the fact that if you didn't have good grades, you weren't going to play in the game. So kind of incentive to do well in your classes. And for me, I was actually in advanced placement classes, so they're basically like college level classes in high school. I took AP Bio, AP US History, so A-Push, and then a couple years of AP English. So you can obviously see where my strengths are just by that alone. So also high school is when all of that adversity with the sports came in, and I will talk about that in a minute too. But academics wise, I'll continue on. So 9th grade, I took algebra. That was tough for me. Once again, didn't really understand it, and just kind of, I wouldn't say sailed through it, because I'm not the person who sails through things. I either do it to the best of my ability and achieve a good quality mark with good quality work, or you don't do it at all. But when I say sail through, I basically mean like a little bit above passing, but that's just because that's literally all I could do with the limited amount of resources and basically being self-taught in a way, because I guess teaching wasn't effective, at least for me. And I wasn't alone, because other people had the same issue with certain teachers. Because some people are just good at teaching, and then some people are just, like, they can do it, but they can't teach it. Or maybe they've done it for so long, they get burnt out, and then, I don't know. So anyway, 9th grade was pretty solid as far as, like, academics and stuff went. Then I would say 10th grade is where it got hard again with math. I was taking Algebra 2, and then 11th grade, the same thing. I took, sorry, my camera keeps moving. It wasn't calculus. It was like it wasn't AP math, but it was like a higher level math. Oh, it was pre-calc. That's what I took. No, I don't even know if it was pre-calc. Trigonometry or one of those things. I don't know. It was like some higher level math class. It might have been pre-calc. I think it was, but I'm not positive. Anyway, there was like limits and stuff that we learned with that. The Algebra 2 was trigonometry stuff, so it's like sine, cosine, tangent, with those $84 frickin' Texas calculator things that you can buy at Walmart. But luckily, in those 2 grades, I had the best math teachers that I've ever had in my entire life. Mr. Kelly for one, and Mr. Baxter for the other. I don't know if they'll watch this video, but literally would credit both of those guys to teaching me how to do math and how to go from, oh my gosh, my camera is literally nuts, sorry. How to go from saying I hate math and I'm not good at it to just getting that out of my mind completely and just doing the work and trying to have confidence when I go into exams and also on homework. So I'll start out with Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly is a phenomenal math teacher, but also a phenomenal coach. He coaches basketball, and he's just as effective and just as good in and on the court as he is in the classroom. Mr. Kelly would sit down with me for all of my homework assignments, because he actually graded all of his homework assignments. So you didn't get graded just for completion, but you got graded on actually like how you scored, how you did. So there was an incentive there to also do well on your homework. And of course, if you're putting that much effort into your homework, it's going to transfer over to your tests and quizzes. So Mr. Kelly would literally sit down with me on all my math quizzes, homeworks, tests. And what I really liked that he did, which was very helpful for me, so math teachers, if you're watching this, pay attention, because this really, really helped me. So Mr. Kelly would write your final grade, all of this in red pen, on the top of your paper. But then next to each question, he would write like exactly how to do the problem the correct way. So not only would he like X off stuff that you did wrong, like, I don't know, some equation or something, we'll just say. So, like a trigonometry thing with sine, cosine, or tangent, whatever it may be, he would mark off your stuff like where you went wrong, but on the right hand side, write down exactly how to do the problem. And then when he sat next to you to go over these problems, he would go over that, make sure you understand that, and then do one additional problem after that. Now, for me, I really like that because of the one-on-one attention got me to fully understand the problem better and what I was doing, but also because it showed that he actually cared about helping me and wanting to see me do better and wanting to make sure that I fully understand the math, how to, like, step by step, not just getting to the answer, but how you get there really matters. And just sitting down with him doing that for, like I said, homeworks, tests, and quizzes really gave me more confidence in math, because again, that's a huge piece of adversity that I faced from like maybe like first grade on, was math. Like, I would always say I hate math, I'm not good at it, which is true, I'm not good at it, but saying that I hate math was because I'm not good at it. That's why I said I hated it. But Mr. Kelly took that out of the equation, no pun intended, and just made me focus on doing it and not saying I can't do this, just constantly reinforcing that I can do this, I know what I'm doing, but maybe when I get to the tests, like, I'm just focused on the outcome of doing well, that I forget what I'm actually doing. Because a lot of times when I would sit down with him, same thing, like, I would understand what I was doing, and he'd be like, now you just need to transfer that over to the tests. So we were thinking that maybe my mindset there wasn't there, it was just the fact that, like, I knew what I was doing, but the test made me feel like anxious or something, to the point where I'd like drew a blank. And he asked me that one time, he was like, do you draw a blank? And I was like, yeah, sometimes I'll get the test and I'll be like staring out in the space. So I don't know if it's because there's numbers on there or what, but that happened to me. So Mr. Kelly, I had him twice, and both classes, algebra and like the trigonometry, whatever the heck it was, he was able to instill that that mindset into me and give me more confidence in what I was doing. So the mindset being, get rid of the I hate math, I can't do it, and say I can do it, I know what I'm doing, I just have to take my time, breathe, whatever I gotta do to get there. Mr. Baxter, same thing. I can't remember the specific class that it was either pre-calc or some higher level class. I want to say it was pre-calc though, because I didn't take calculus in high school. So Mr. Baxter, very similar to Mr. Kelly, would sit down with you and go through the equations and the problems one-on-one with you, which I very much appreciated and liked, because again, it shows that you're very good, not very good, but that you actually care about what the student is doing and you want to see them succeed and you want to help them. You're not just giving them a grade and sending them off on their way and saying this doesn't matter. Like, you actually want them to understand the material. Once again, I don't know if there's some kind of correlation here, but Mr. Baxter was also a coach. He was a cross country and I believe track coach. So running, which is not my strong suit obviously, but that's kind of ironic that both of them were also coaches and both math teachers. So again, Mr. Baxter, just as good as a track coach as he was teaching math. And again, sitting down like that with me really boosted my confidence again, just transitioning even from Mr. Kelly to Mr. Baxter. Now, they both had different teaching styles, but for me, they were the most effective people, and I would say probably my mentors in high school because of that. And just because of the fact that they actually got me to understand math and not say I hate it. So that, again, they instilled those mindset tools in me that I wish I had, you know, a couple years ago in middle school, but again, just shows that I've kind of grew over time. And then I will say one more person that was kind of like a mentor to me was Mr. Backus. He was a high school earth science teacher, and this happened to me, true story. I was very good at earth science. I don't know why, because I'm not good in like other sciences. Like, I really struggled with biology, the AP Bio class, and I struggled with chemistry. I actually kind of had to self-teach myself chemistry. Passed the regents though, passed the class with like, I think high 70 something. Again, not a great grade, but for me, I will take that for being self-taught. Yeah, we have regents exams in New York, if you didn't know that. It's like a test at the end of the year, mandated by the state, encompassing all the stuff that you learned throughout the year. You have to pass it to move on to the next grade. I believe a passing is also like a 66 or a 65 on those. So the earth science story that I will tell you is I was very good at earth science, so I had a bunch of other people that were coming up to me and doing these homework questions with me. So we got a page out of the homework book, and it was a bunch of multiple choice questions. There might be like 10 to 15, maybe 20. I don't remember what the exact number was. So a lot of people would just kind of cheat off of me, and I noticed that after a while because I was good at that. So what I started doing was I was giving them the wrong answers, knowing what the right ones were. Because then they would get their paper back and realize, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing because they're failing. So I told the teacher that, and he kind of laughed at me, but he goes, well, at the end of the day, the tests are the great equalizers. That's what he said, and I will always remember that. That was in 9th grade. Because you can cheat on your homework, but when the test comes around, it will show you what you actually know and what you don't. So everybody essentially that was cheating, even if they were cheating, when they get to the test, they'll still do poorly because they didn't actually know it. They're just copying off someone's paper. So that was kind of comical for that. So as far as academics go, I would say those were like the major points of adversity or like setbacks and doubt that I had. I would say for me, the major point of doubt was obviously in math classes. And like I said, from I would say probably like elementary school all the way through middle school and some parts of high school, I very much doubted myself. So again, how I kind of attacked the doubt in math class was just to keep working through it. So even if I didn't do that well, just knowing that, hey, there's another one, test-wise, and also just homeworks. My 7th grade teacher in math always said that to me. She goes, well, you got the next one, you got the next one. So kind of just about repetition like that, but just kind of trying to keep the mindset like there's always another one. But the problem with that was that the other one would come around and it still wouldn't be that great of an outcome for me. So again, I think a lot of that stuff kind of really depends on the teacher at times, because I wasn't doing that well in math then. But then when I got to high school, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Baxter were very influential in instilling that mindset into my head of getting rid of the words I can't and I hate math, to like not necessarily saying that this is fun, but just like I can do it, I've got this, take my time, giving me little tips like before you take the test, take a deep breath, just sit there for a second if you have to before you just do anything, jot down the things that you do know at the top of the paper first for that particular test, and then maybe things will come to you as you go. So that's really like a mindset thing, I think, and a mindset shift from just like middle school to high school. Maybe it has something to do with me getting older and maybe like more teachable, I don't know, but for me that was at least the hardest part and the biggest setback or piece and point in time of adversity that I faced. And like I said, I don't even know how I would approach it any differently other than, like I said, just you got the next one, you got the next one, you got the next one. I think that goes for like anything in life. Like if you just sit there and take the failures but you don't try to do anything to overcome them, then you're just a loser at that point. You're never going to be a winner. But the difference between a loser and a winner is that the winner tried one more time than the loser was willing to try. So I think you have to keep trying at the end of the day and not giving up. I think the quote was something like, a winner is just a loser who tried one more time. So that's what I was trying to get at there. But as far as athletics and stuff go, obviously I already touched on that before, but I'll go into depth now on how I dealt with it. So again, with the basketball ordeal, being benched over the coach's daughter because she was a teacher's kid, he was a gym teacher at the school, so there was a lot of kind of stuff like that. And granted, I was friends with a couple teachers' kids too, but when it came to basketball, it was like the teacher's kid and their friends kind of got to be starters and I wasn't. So there was one point, I will be honest, in high school where I really just wanted to quit, but I just stuck it out that season. Once again, I was admonished in front of the entire group of girls. I was pushed and shoved and pinched all the time in many of my practices by the other girls because they knew I was good and they just didn't want me to have the ball. So one of them pinched me and it really hurt during practice, so I said ow and dropped the ball or something, and they ran down the other side of the court with the ball and scored. And I got admonished saying, why did you stop? Why didn't you run? Stop being lazy. What are you doing? And I was like, she just pinched me. So that's why I stopped, because it hurts. It's painful. And that's why I dropped the ball. And he's like, well, the refs aren't going to see everything, so you have to keep going, shove her back if you have to. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the wrong attitude and the wrong mindset. Why would you shove someone back just because the ref didn't see it, or pinch them in turn just because they did that to you? Like, yeah, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, but that doesn't really make you a better person at the end of the day. You're not a leader, and you certainly are not somebody to emulate if that's what you're going to do, is just provoke people and start problems and chaos and violence. So I wasn't really that type of person, but at this point in time, I was fed up with these people after being benched all the time, giving it my all in practice, like trying my best, going to camps to be on the varsity squad when I was put down on JV because I wasn't good enough. And that was all nonsense. It was all because they just wanted a certain group of girls on the varsity team, and I wasn't one of them, apparently. So, yeah, that practice ended up pushing one of the girls because I had enough of it. Like, I boxed her out really hard, but I kind of shoved her. And she was all dramatic about it, kind of like some of these NBA players are at times, a little over dramatic. And she started fake crying and all this other stuff, claiming that I hurt her. And then I got screamed at, why did you do that? And I said, well, you told me like 2 minutes beforehand that I should do it back to somebody, whatever they did to me. So they go, you don't do that, you don't push and shove people. But meanwhile, these same people were pinching, shoving, pushing, pulling people's hair, not only in practice, but in games too, which I swear is why they won a lot of their games, because they played dirty. And I wasn't willing to do that, and I'm not that type of player. I don't do that type of stuff. But that's what they did. And then, I was forced to do sprints. So I guess they call them, like, suicides, but to keep it PC, we would call them sprints. So I had to do sprints, was yelled at in front of the coach once again, and it was just god-awful. He just screamed and yelled at me in front of everybody. I honestly had all to do but to walk out of that room and never return again and just quit. But I'm not a quitter, so what I did was just stick it out. I told my mom about this, once again, because she was my biggest supporter, always has been. She went up and talked to the coach, and I wish she had a recording of it, but I guess he screamed and yelled at her in his office too. So, wasn't a great way to handle it. And again, like, I just tried my best. And what my tactic was to practice hard and to play hard, and that the time that I did get to play, I made sure that I would score points, take shots when I had open ones, and just push as hard as I could to kind of show these people, I guess you could say, that even though you're going to put me down and scream and yell at me and choose to put people in over me who maybe aren't as good as me just because you want your kid to be better or to shine above everybody else and be a standout when someone else with talent is being benched just because of that, that I have what it takes and I'm good, because if I was able to score that many points in very few minutes, then it shows that I'm pretty good, and maybe they're benching me because of that. So I did that, and the coach actually ended up pulling me aside at the end of that year of basketball and wanted to buy me lunch and apologize because he didn't want to ruin his relationship with me. So that was it for basketball, though. Like, that's kind of how I dealt with that, I would say. Basically what I did for basketball was I just kept showing up, and the next year I just decided to try out again, even if it was the case that I was on the JV team. And ultimately I did not, I don't think, play my final year in high school because I was just so fed up with that it just wasn't even worth it for me at that point to keep playing. But at the time, like, what I was doing was kind of just like taking it and not really sticking up for myself and just like telling my mom about it. But if I was to go back there today, what I wish I had was the ability to stand up for myself and say something about the way I was being treated. So instead of being a pushover, I wish going back that I would have stuck up for myself and said something, be like, and asking the coaches to have a sit down talk with them and asked them why I was being treated the way I was and saying all these things that I'm saying now. I also wish that my mindset was different, because right now, how I see it is I was just being treated that way because I was good and because they didn't want me to like outperform or whatever their kids, and benched me so that I couldn't score points and I couldn't help the team win in that respect. And just knowing that it wasn't because I wasn't good, but because they didn't want me to excel beyond maybe their kids. So again, just the mindset shift, and I always think about that a lot now. And something that I wish I did differently or had then was just a stronger mindset that I have now, and the ability to say like, it doesn't matter anymore, because it doesn't, but it's still a springboard for me for a lot of things in life. And the ability mentally to say that this is just a blip on the radar, it's not permanent, it's just temporary. And to not be so frustrated with it, because I should know that it's not because I'm not good, it's because I am good, and they're punishing me for that. And then just I guess, probably because I was in high school, so my mind wasn't as developed and strong as it is now. But again, just, I guess, not really mental stability, but mental, capacity maybe is a better word, and endurance wise, to not let people's thoughts about me, comments, and actions affect the way that I go about things, or just the way that I feel about myself. Because being put down like that all the time, I was constantly doubting myself, like, am I even good enough at this? But I was dribbling basketball at 5 years old, so clearly I must be good. And if I scored 11 points in 5 minutes in a game, I must be doing something right. So there was a lot of doubt there, and I guess once again, like, my parents just kind of reinforced that in me, that I wasn't bad. It's just everybody else that was trying to prevent me from scoring and doing well. So just, I guess, the mental tools and the mental receipts of saying that even though this is happening, like, I can still get through it, and I should still keep pushing. Like, I had that, but I think I thought too emotionally about it at that point, whereas now I see it from a different perspective and just know that it was happening for that reason, but also saying, like, just thinking about it differently, I guess, from a different lens now, than I was then. Like, I was too emotionally involved in it then to actually see, like, the full picture, whereas now I see the full picture and it doesn't really bother me as much. Like, I can just kind of brush it off. So I think that's part of growing up and growing your mind. But if I could go back, like, that's how I would have dealt with it. So instead of, like, maybe getting upset about it or feeling down and letting it bother me, like, mentally and physically, to the point where I didn't even want to show up to practices or the games and wanted to quit, like, now, if that happened to me, I would get the grit and the courage and say, I'm not going to quit. Like, I'm going to keep showing up, keep doing my best, and keep pushing, and be happy about it, smile and laugh, because that will just irritate them, and they'll be like, why is she not being upset? So that's kind of how I would attack that differently. And just, again, like, when I was doubted in those times, I did push through, but it was majorly due because of my support system from my parents. So I guess, like, if you're at that age, I would just rely on your parents to kind of give you the extra support and encouragement, but also just try not to doubt yourself as much, and just talk to yourself positively, and not be so emotionally invested in things like that. So all in all, I think, like, the biggest takeaway from kind of first grade to high school was that when you have or are dealing with adversity or self-doubt, it's really a mindset game. So as, like, a kid, it can be tough because your prefrontal cortex isn't developed yet. So you're not going to be as mentally strong or have that mental elasticity or the mental receipts necessarily to get through that stuff. So it's important to lean on your parents and also people in your life that choose to help you, like the Mr. Baxters, the Mr. Kellys of the world, that actually want to help you. And I honestly swear that if I was to ask them about, like, a personal problem that I was dealing with or something, they would probably never hesitate to help me with that either. And I remember like one time in the hallway, I was crying about something, and Mr. Kelly said, it's not like you're having a bad day, but it's just what you choose to think about that's making it bad. So like, in other words, if you can change the situation just by thinking about it differently. And that's what he was trying to say, like, it's up to you to control it, it's up to you to fix it. So by that, he just meant, like, instead of crying over something, think about it in a more positive light, or just turn your attention to something else. So especially with basketball too, though, it was really, really tough. But again, like, the mindset shift that I wish that I had, or the ability that I wish that I had, the mental elasticity, is to think about it in less of an emotional way and more of a not strategic approach, but I guess like a rational approach that I am now. I think that comes with just like growing up and stuff, but also leaning on my mom and my dad during that time very much helped me. But again, if I was to go back and fix it or like deal with it differently, I would just tell myself, like, screw these people, like, I'm still gonna play, I'm still gonna show up anyway, like, I shouldn't care about them. If I'm playing because I love the sport, like, who cares, you know? It's just high school too. It's not like it's a career or something. At least it wasn't for me. Basketball was never going to be my career, so why does it matter? Like, it's just for fun. Like, yeah, it matters school record wise for like your team or whatever, but it doesn't count in the grand scheme of things. And just instead of being emotional about it and upset, just be like, yeah, whatever, and kind of like brush it off, rather than be upset about it and let it dictate how I go about my day, the rest of my practice, the rest of my week, and the rest of the time of that season. Also, something that I will say is that, back to the academic side, also, like, how I dealt really quickly with the you won't lift weights after high school thing was like a watch me approach. So that's what I wish I had now too, is like, instead of saying, oh, you won't do this, I'll just be like, watch me. Because I'm not only going to do it, but I'm going to do it at 10 times what you think I'm going to do. So, yeah, I think that has something to do with age, definitely. But if you can lean on and talk to people or listen to people at that point in time in your life that will tell you, like, what I'm saying now, like, just make the mental shift, I think you'll be that much more better. That's kind of a bad way to put it. You'll have that much more mental clarity about it. You'll be that much mentally stronger, and you'll have those mental receipts by the time you do get out of high school and move on to college or something else, because you will face a lot of adversity, challenges, and setbacks in your life. But if you're able to experience them from very early on, learn how to deal with them, build the mental mind work and framework that you need to get through them, then those challenges, even though you may face may seem like huge or insurmountable, they won't be, because you'll have that one time that you dealt with this thing, can look back on it, remember how you dealt with it, and get through it that way. So for me, yeah, it was just like a huge mindset thing. And going back, like I said, less emotional, more strategic and like rational about it, and kind of throw the emotions out the window and just be like, kind of like brush it off and say, this doesn't matter, like, whatever, at the end of the day. But I will say too that, going back to academics, my high school English teacher was kind of like a Debbie Downer to me. So again, like, he would always put my writing down and say it was like subpar, and give me grades that were less than everyone else. And at the time I was taking 2 English classes because the AP one didn't fit in my schedule. So I had to meet with that professor once a week on my own time, just have a discussion with the 2 of us, and then take the regular English class, do work for both of those classes, which the AP class was like twice the reading. So I was constantly reading, and I forgot to fill in a little story, but I will now very quickly. In high school, I had a babysitter, Savannah, and she made me read all summer long. That's when I read the Stephen King book, the Host book, that I think they turned into a movie. And every day she would make sure we set aside time to read. She would go to the library with me. I think she helped me get my first library card, but I'm not sure. I might have gotten that like years ago. We would take a book out and we would aim to like get I don't know, like 3 books read cover to cover by the end of the summer when she was done babysitting me. And that was definitely very influential to me, somebody that I really looked up to, a role model, because she was encouraging me to read. She knew the story from my mom that I wasn't a good reader, and a lot of times kids do sometimes fall back over the summer if they're not reading or not keeping up with writing because they get distracted with like vacations or other things, and kind of all that stuff goes out the window. And then by the time they get back in September, whenever your school starts, you're kind of rusty. She didn't want that to happen to me, so she had me read. That's really when I would say my reading took off, and I think I was about 9 at that age. I was speed reading. I was reading books that people in my class weren't even looking at reading. It was like, yeah, like thick books. So if I could yell back once again and recommend something to somebody, that's what I would say, is to read more. And I'll get to that in a second because I do have 2 books here to my side that are very good books if you want to kind of get into that mental mindset of thinking bigger and just having the mental framework, the mental receipts to get through tough challenges, adversity, and setbacks. But yeah, that English teacher wasn't necessarily nice to me. And I remember one time we did these blogs. I think I still have the website for that. And he was like, "You write really well this way." And I was like, "Well, I think I write really well the other way too." But I guess he disagreed with that. But specifically, one thing about him was this. And that was when I was cleaning out my locker at the end of senior year. He saw me in the hallway and he was asking me what I was going to do in college. And I told him I was going to major in philosophy. And he looked at me like this and walked away. Didn't say anything else. I still remember that to this day because he didn't think, I guess, that I was going to make it through that because he thought that I was horrible at writing. And that's like what philosophy is. It's a lot of argument, but you also read too. And you have to write in like an argumentative style. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but he was kind of like a downer to me as well. And he kind of just always doubted me, and I just always kept to myself about it. But deep down, I was like, well, I know what I'm capable of. I know I'm good at this, so I'm just going to keep going. I'll take whatever corrections he gives me and fix them, but just keep the mental framework at the end of the day that I'm good, I know what I'm doing, instead of having someone look at me funny because of something that I decided to do. And one book that I had to read over the summer for him was Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and it was very much a philosophical piece. Everybody else in my class hated it. They thought it was dry and boring, but I actually really loved it, and I think that sparked my want to be a philosophy major in college. He also looked at me funny when I said that that was my favorite read for the summer that we had. And I don't know why. Like, why wouldn't you just encourage somebody and say, "Oh, that's very good. Like, I'm glad you enjoyed that book," instead of putting them down and saying, "Oh, it's boring," even as like an English teacher. So again, like the mindset that I had when I got out of there was watch me. Then years later, my cousin actually had the same teacher, and obviously you still have like parent-teacher conferences, whatever. And my cousin went in there for that cousin to talk about like whatever it is they were talking about, and I guess she told him like I was in law school or whatever. So that was my way of kind of saying like, haha, like you put me down or whatever. Not only did I go to college, but now I'm in law school and got a master's degree. So that's just like another win in my opinion that I can put in my pocket as like a mental receipt, because I proved those people wrong. And speaking about college, I was actually told in high school that I shouldn't be applying to colleges like Colgate and University of Rochester and Franklin and Marshall and other Ivy League schools, because I might not necessarily get in or have the grades to get in, because they look at people who have like perfect averages and extremely high SAT scores. And I don't understand why you would put someone down like that. Why you shouldn't just say, well, you can try, but it might be very difficult, but I would encourage you to apply anyway. I was told that, and I applied to those schools anyway, because again, sitting down with my mom, strategically going over this stuff, she's like, you might as well apply anyway, because we're not like a very wealthy family, so you might get like quite a bit of aid too from a bigger school that can afford to shell it out. So I applied to Colgate, I applied to the University of Rochester, and I applied to, what was the other school? Franklin and Marshall. I got on the waiting list, I believe, for all 3 of them. Franklin and Marshall ultimately decided that I didn't make it to the final point of the applicant pool. And I'm not sure what happened with Colgate and U of R, but I did get some kind of scholarship as well senior year for U of R. So that was kind of cool. I think I got like a pen or something too. But I never went there. But I did end up going to a Colgate Division I softball camp. And that was a lot of fun because, again, like, speaking to me not being a coached person or like a self-coached person, I showed up there and I was the only one that wasn't in a uniform and didn't have a trainer or a coach with me. And all these people flew out from all over the country and they all had like personal trainers, coaches, like bat bags and stuff with multiple bats in them, multiple gloves, multiple balls, and all this gear. And I showed up with a t-shirt and shorts on and a pair of cleats and was like flipping like bare hand throws to people from shortstop to second. They were like, whoa. And just like hitting and stuff. So that was crazy because, again, like, self-coached here and showed up there with a bunch of people who had trainers and coaches, and I was still able to compete. But moving on to college, like, I got into Ithaca College, took philosophy, minored in history. And what's really funny about all the stuff I faced from even like 6th grade and then again in high school with the English stuff, being told I wasn't a good writer, is I took an upper level philosophy course my first year. It was philosophical problems in law. Very funny because I ended up going to law school, right? So it was about like just the Constitution, different ways of like thinking. So you get like the Locke, the John Hobbes, the Hobbesian state of nature where everything's like all chaos and that we need like law and order. So all kinds of stuff like that. We had like a mock debate at the end and I was the judge for that. I got A's on all of my papers. My professor went to Brown, and then he got his PhD from the University of Michigan. So he's not a dummy, very smart guy. Still like him to this day. I believe he still teaches in the philosophy department there. But he wrote on one of my papers, and I think is like a final comment, like, this is very impressive writing for a freshman, which honestly made me laugh because, again, in high school I was put down until my writing was subpar and was getting like 70s on my papers that I was writing, and here I am in an upper level like philosophy course freshman year and I get an A in the class and an A on all my papers. So I think that's just a testament to saying when you're doubted, like, the biggest thing is you have to tell yourself, like, you are worth it, you know what you're doing at the end of the day, you can do this, you will get through it, and you have the tools and the know-how to get through it. And you can't let anyone else's comments about you detract from what you're doing. You kind of have to put the blinders on. You've got to have that tunnel vision. Cliche stuff that everybody says, but that's kind of what I did, and just have the watch me mentality, as I like to say. So when someone doubts you, just say, watch me. And then just go and do the thing, whatever it is, and then just make sure it's like twice as good as what someone else said. Not for them, but also for you. So just to prove it to yourself that you did it. And then the second part of that is just to show people that, yeah, you can doubt me, but I'm still going to do what you told me I couldn't do at the end of the day. And again, those will be the mental receipts that you can use over time when you face another challenge, another pothole in the road. You can look back on that and say, hey, if I can get through that, then I can get through this. And that's what I tell myself to this day. So college wasn't really like too much of adversity. I would say like I got more support from my professors than I ever did in high school. And I just noticed the difference between like high school teachers and professors. Not knocking anybody on this or anything, but just like saying like there is a difference between a high school teacher and a college professor. Like, it's a higher level of learning, it's a higher level of teaching. And I think they're just kind of more sophisticated and more adept to deal with high level problems and better discussions, and instead of putting you down, they will encourage you more than the negativity. Like, you might get a paperback and have corrections, but they're not going to tell you that you're crappy at writing. They'll say like, you can organize this paragraph differently, like maybe this belongs down here, or like elaborate a little bit more on that, make it more clear. So they give you constructive feedback, whereas in high school it was just told, your writing's terrible, you're not good at this, like, you're not improving. So that was the major difference that I saw between high school and college. And I really felt more welcome and more focused and more confidence overall in college versus high school, because my work that I was doing in high school, when I told myself I can do this, was actually paying off in college, because not only were professors noticing my ability to write, but they were more supportive of me. So like if I wanted something extra during office hours, I contacted them or whatever to talk about something, they would be willing and happy to sit down and talk with me. Whereas in high school, that almost felt like a burden to a teacher, aside from maybe the Mr. Kelly and the Mr. Baxter type story. So college was like very much the shining light, I would say the shining star in the sky for me, showing me that all the adversity, the setbacks, the trouble, the negativity, the comments, the doubt that I dealt with from first grade, and the problems with like reading even, to college, and be able to have that reading problem in first grade and then go to college and take something that's very reading and writing intensive, which was history and philosophy. It's all reading and all paper writing, logic courses, stuff like that. It was just crazy. It was like I was doubted so much, and I got through all of that. And even I can point to one time actually in college when I had a problem, which was the logic class, because it's all symbols and stuff. It's very similar to like an algebra proof. Trying to just like manipulate the syntax is what my professor said. Professor Klee, very good, loved him. My favorite class with him was philosophy of mind. I still have the book. It's over there on the bookshelf. But I was having a problem with that because logic, very similar to like math equations, and the whole semester was kind of like, I mean, like the easier proofs to start out with I was fine with, but then once we got to more complex stuff, I had trouble. Then Professor Cleve, much like Mr. Kelly and Mr. Baxter, sat down with me and wanted to help me with it and encouraged me to come to his office hours and figure out what the problem was, go through a bunch of logic problems. So I get the hang of them, get the reps in with that, and understand how to do it so I'm successful moving forward. Because he saw my ability in other philosophy courses, and he's like, I know you can do this, you just have to do it. Basically, you have to execute when it comes time to take the exams and do the homework. So I was going to him a couple times a week on my free time during college, and he was giving me different problems out of the book to do, and then ones that he made up on his own. Eventually, after like 3 sessions with that, I don't know how much time each, maybe like 20 to 30 minute sessions, I was improving. My homework was better. I was doing better on tests. And then, like Mr. Backus said, the tests are the great equalizers. That came full circle here. With Mr. Klee's help, the final exam of the year had a 15-line proof, which is very long if you've ever done proofs in logic. You basically, there's like a couple different ways to solve these things, but so like everyone's might look different, but the most important point with that is that you actually prove whatever it is you're trying to prove, and like do the correct like logic symbols and stuff to get there. And on that final was, I guess, the hardest problem of the entire semester, which was that 15-line proof. Now, I struggled all through that class all semester. I was the only one in that class who got that entire 15-line proof from the first line to the 15th correct, with the correct overall like outcome or whatever it was, like the correct answer. Now, that is a perfect example of not giving up and not letting the doubt get to you, but just having the mental receipts of doing problems over and over again correct to give you that confidence boost to say, I can do this and I will do this, and I am perfectly capable of doing it. And also reaching out to someone who wants to help you versus someone who's just going to tell you, like, you can't do this. So with Mr. Klee's help right there, I was able to be like the only person in the class that got that proof, and it was the hardest one of the entire year. So that's literally living proof, no pun intended there either, that if you put the reps in and you don't doubt yourself and you tell yourself you can do it, then you can literally do anything. I know, very cliche again, but this is all like mindset stuff. Like, your mind has to be so strong that no matter what happens to you, you will bounce back from whatever adversity or problem you are facing. So again, like a time that paid off. But in college, I would say like that's the most doubt or adversity that I faced. It was pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but it was a lot better than high school, and my abilities really shined through and people started to notice them. And then law school, I can literally make a whole other video on just how to deal with law school in general, so drop in the comments if you got it this far in the video if you'd like to see that, because I can go into depth on like, should you go to law school, what it's like, stuff like that. But law school, by far the toughest thing that I've ever done. The master's program, not so much. Like, it was different than college, but and like a little bit more technical work and a higher level work because you're held to a higher standard because it is graduate level work, but it was not as hard as law school. I'm not sure whether it's because I took AP classes in high school that helped me out in college, and maybe college helped me with the master's, or just like because I took master's programs and was used to some of the reading and stuff that I was going to do in the law program. Maybe that's why I was able to kind of get the hang of law school. But law school really challenged me mentally because it is a lot of work, and it is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. That's 100% true. If you've heard that before, yes, it's true. You get a lot of work, a lot of reading. It's more reading than I ever faced in my entire life, even through college and even through the master's program. One point I had 144 pages for one class, and that was an online class, and I had 5 other classes worth of work to do. I had an appellate brief that was a 30-page brief in my second year for appellate advocacy that I had to balance that on top of, again, like 5 other classes worth of reading and writing. So that's what I'm going to turn to these books right here, because this is truly what, other than my mom, who's been my biggest supporter since day one, this is what got me through law school. It was reading and watching people online that I related to, that their message resonated with me, who came from like a similar background or maybe faced like adversity or tough situations of being told no, they couldn't do it, or people who faced like big world problems, like big problems in life, and overcame them through some way, shape, or form. And also the people that I ultimately wanted to live my life after, or kind of like build a life of that they live now. These are the two of the people I would say that have been very influential to me, and I've read both of their books. That is Berner over here, the rapper. He's also the CEO of the Cookies brand. And Grant Cardone, real estate mogul. I absolutely love this guy. I've read about 3 or 4 of his books now. So 2 of these guys, I've watched a lot of Grant Cardone live sales trainings on YouTube. I watch a lot of his just like discussions about life, his background. And Berner, again, he's more than just a rapper. He is not only the owner of the Cookies brand, but he beat cancer, and he also has a record label. So he is a rapper, but he makes music, and he wrote this book. And this book, I would recommend it if you're into business, if you want to read about somebody essentially coming from nothing or coming off the streets and having a giant come up and making it in America. This is your book. It's very good. It's got like his story in there. So like here's a picture of Berner. I don't know. I love this cover to cover. I think highlighted a bunch of stuff in here. I plan on reading it again. It was just very nice for me to read that because I do come from a bit of a family business background. Like my mom and my uncle run a business that's been together for 50 years in the town that I grew up in. My uncle also has his own company in New York City based on like because it's like health and beauty. I won't really say the names out loud just to keep it low key, but he's very well known for what he does. He patented a couple procedures for his medical practice. So I also very much emulate him, but I would say the biggest one is Grant Cardone. When Grant Cardone was about 25 years old, he was addicted to drugs and alcohol. He lost his job. He went to rehab. He was working at a car sales place, just like having trouble with that because of like the drugs and alcohol. Completely dropped drugs and alcohol, turned his life around, and now has a billion-dollar company, 10x. And this book is a great book that has all the mindset tools that you will need to get through anything that you're facing, especially like a situation like he was, where he literally almost like lost everything because of his drug and alcohol addiction, but was able to turn it around at, I think, maybe like 50 years old, I think is when he said he started in real estate, and built that multi-billion-dollar business with locations for real estate and like apartments all over the United States. If you don't have like a good support system at home, or you feel like you can't talk to your parents about things, definitely find someone like a Grant Cardone, a Berner. Another one is Moses Heredia. Just read his book as well recently, Fields to Fortunes. If you haven't, highly recommend it. Check it out. I've actually had a couple discussions with him just on Instagram messaging him. He actually follows me, and whenever I need something, I'll just say like, hey, like I'm going through this, but your book like really helped me out. And I was like, this happened to me. And he goes, well, maybe that happened for a reason. Like, trust that God has a plan for you. And his book, very similar to like Grant Cardone, kind of came from nothing. He was working in the fields in, I think, New Mexico or Texas maybe. And his family kind of helped people who are living in Mexico get to the United States to have and live a better life. And it wasn't always easy for him either. He dealt with a lot of adversity, a lot of problems, not a lot of money either. And now he's got the global processing system that he built. A lot of trials and tribulations along the way, but he's very successful with it. He's met Donald Trump before. I think he has also actually met Grant Cardone. So these people are prime examples of someone who either came from nothing and made it in life and succeeded and are millionaires or even billionaires with big companies now that are worth a lot of money, or it's people that had a lot of struggle, a lot of adversity, and a lot of problems along the way, beat those problems, got through it mentally and physically, used these mental receipts to get through it, and then wrote books about it. And Berner talks about that a lot. He always supports young entrepreneurs and loves to see when people are starting their own business and stuff like that. And he also, I think, lost his mom to cancer or something, I believe, when he was starting the cookies brand. So I believe that's what happened. If I'm not, I'm sorry, but I believe that's what happened. Or she was like sick with some ailment, and he was able to kind of use that as a springboard as well. And Grant Cardone, he's got this one. He's got another wealth creation formula one that I've read, and there's another one, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But this one right here is very good because it teaches you and shows you that how average thinking is actually kind of dangerous, and you need to be obsessed with what you're doing in life to overcome being average. And I think that's what I would attribute my success to in overcoming all of that stuff in high school and some of it in college, is to think bigger than what I was previously thinking. So expand my thinking and almost be delusional in a way about my outcomes and goals and aspirations. And even just thinking about like getting through a test or something, and giving myself the mental edge by constantly either writing down or repeating phrases to myself that I'm going to get through this, I'm going to do better, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And not only saying that I'm going to do it, but then writing under it that I did it, just so that it makes it that much more true, rings that much more true, and you can kind of like see it before it actually happens. So there's a lot of tips and tricks. I'm not going to give it all away because you should definitely invest in these books, but that's kind of what I did like all through law school, was read those books and watch interviews of those people, listen to their stories, listen to their conversations with other people, and especially those conversations with other people, because they'll be asked certain questions, or like even in the middle of a question, someone will doubt what they're saying, and they'll say, well, I did this, this, and this, and got through it, or this is how I can tell you that that's not like correct, or something like that. So just like pick a couple people. I wouldn't pick too many. I would say maybe 5 tops, but even that might be too many. I would say maybe 3. So like for me, Berner, Grant Cardone, Moses Heredia. I would also throw Ryan Serhant in there, another real estate mogul. He's got a great story too. I think he's from like Topsfield, Massachusetts, and he was like cutting and selling firewood one day with his brother to make money when they were growing up, and now he is again like got a $1 billion company, Serhant, that sells real estate all over the place in the US. So I would say those are probably my 4 most influential people. I gotta throw Derek Jeter in there too, because a great quote from him that I love is, some people may have more talent than you do, but there's no excuse for people to work harder than you do. It might not be word for word, but I live by that quote every single day. Hard work is what gets you there, but the mental mindset will too. So those 2 things combined, you're basically unstoppable and you can make it through anything. But I would say, yeah, for me, the biggest thing in law school was reading from those people and watching their stuff and knowing that if they did it, that I can do it too. And to close it out in the last like 5 minutes or so, that's also why I created Form Check Plus, because I dealt with all this struggle, doubt, adversity, setbacks through my life so far, and I'm not done. I don't have all the answers either. This is just to kind of share what I've been through. Maybe it helps somebody, maybe it doesn't, but I just want to put it out there because I think a lot of people, especially the month of June, it is Men's Mental Health Month, are struggling mentally to get through things, and I don't want people to feel like they're alone. So that's why on the Form Check Plus app, I created a mindset page. So it's got like habit tracking, it's got daily affirmations, you can write your own affirmations. You can also keep track of the things you're reading and watching. So like if you read Grant Cardone's book, you can write that you read it in there, or you can just like make notes as you go. You can rate the book, but you can also say how it affected you mentally, or like what you got out of it that really helped you mentally. So kind of relate it to like the things you're watching and reading and how it affects your mental mindset or your mental framework. Because when you watch people and when you read their stuff, you really do kind of become that person. So if you wanted to become Grant Cardone or shape your life after him, you should read his books, you should watch his interviews, you should do the things that he did to get you where you want to go. Maybe you don't live the exact life like he does, but maybe there's something about his life that you want. So like maybe real estate you want to get into. You should watch and follow Grant Cardone, or just the success story behind him. If you are trying to get out of a certain horrible situation in your life, maybe you don't have any money and you're really good at real estate, or like really good at selling real estate, that's your path to go. So he'd be your person to follow. So that's why I created the mindset page, and also because you can be as good as you want at weightlifting or sports, but eventually somewhere along the way there's going to be a rut in the road, there's going to be a setback, there's going to be a time when you're doubting yourself. Maybe it's on the free throw line, you don't practice free throws enough, so when you get a foul you don't make your shots, and that's 2 points that your team didn't get. So you kind of let your team down because you were not living up to your full potential and neglected practicing those free throw shots. Or maybe you just constantly doubt yourself in those situations because you haven't built enough mental receipts in that type of situation to know that you can get through it. So repetition is very important, but what you watch and what you read, the content that you're absorbing, is how you ultimately react and think about stuff and emulate what you see and what you read. So what you're reading and what you're seeing is very important, and if you can correlate that to your mindset, you make yourself that much more stronger with the mental elasticity to get through these things. And because if you're reading something that's negative, you're going to think negative, you're going to react to things negatively, and you might hurt people around you. So I created the mindset page because of that, because every athlete kind of needs a sports psychologist in their pocket. So Form Check Plus really adds that to your playbook and to your preparation, whether it be for just general fitness, your progress photos, stuff like that. And the Form Check Plus app is also equipped with like other motivational tools. So you have like the daily affirmations, but you also have like the AI insight for your progress photos, which can tell you like you're doing great or like keep doing well. You have the pre-warm-up pump-up message, so it essentially gets you pumped up. It's the AI voice saying like, let's crush this workout. Because if you tell yourself that before you go into your workout, you're going to have a great workout. But if you tell yourself you're tired, I can't do this, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to have a crap workout, then that's what you're going to get. So what you put in is what you get out, and it all starts up here. So to close it out again, yes, like that's kind of just my story, my background of how I dealt with doubt, adversity, setbacks, and negativity. This is just my story, and yours is going to look very different from mine, and what works for me might not necessarily work for you. But I wanted to create this because the last few videos I've talked about the stuff that I've gone through, but I never really broke down how I went about facing it or what I did to overcome it. So I hope you got like a glimpse into the bigger picture of things, like how I was able to get through it. Again, I will say like my parents, especially my mom, was my rock, my biggest support system throughout my entire life. And I credit a lot of like my mental elasticity and my mental strength from her, and also how she deals with things and being like assertive about stuff. And the biggest things that I would say, going back was, if I could fix stuff about like doubt and dealing with adversity and those struggles in basketball, in English and stuff like that, and not being able to read, would be to think about it less emotionally and attack it from a more strategic standpoint, and being more rational about it and saying like, this is happening for a reason. And then knowing what that reason is, and then changing it by changing your mindset, making that mindset shift to say, this is happening because of this. Like, if it's beyond my control, let it go. Stay positive, know my ability to get through these things, know my self-worth. Don't listen to the negativity, put those blinders on, have that tunnel vision, focus on what I know I'm good at. Maybe if someone says, okay, your weakness in writing is this, always focus on that, obviously, because you want to get better. You have to take the constructive criticism. But if people are shaking your heads at you, telling you, like, they don't think you can go to college and take philosophy, just know your worth and don't doubt yourself and have that watch me attitude. Instead of saying, like, maybe they're right, say, watch me do it. And watch me do it like 2 or 10 times better than you think I'm going to do. And get through it and prove to yourself and them that you're worthy of that. So I would say, yeah, don't think about it from an emotional standpoint. Think about it from a rational standpoint, using this instead of your heart. Also, I would say just, having the ability to like walk away from confrontations like that, or just saying whatever and laughing it off, but building up the courage to speak up when something is going wrong. That's something that I wish I did in high school, that going back, if I could change, I would have done now, because I should have stuck up for myself. I was in high school, I wasn't a little 5-year-old or whatever, or 9 in frickin' 5th grade. So I did have the ability to do that, and I should have gone to those coaches and asked to sit with them one-on-one behind closed doors to have a talk, and told them exactly how I'm feeling and how I want things to change, and saying that I feel like quitting because of the way that they're treating me, but then also saying I'm not going to quit because I love doing this sport. And that's another part of it too, is to not quit when you're being doubted, but keep going. Because as I've said with the powerlifting stuff that I face, like, showing up and keep putting the work in is progress in your fitness bank. But it also makes people mad who doubt you and tell you that you can't, because they want you to quit. So what you have to keep doing is showing up, not to prove them wrong, but to prove it to yourself that you're worthy of being there. You're there for a reason, and because you're doing it because you love it. So if I could like sum it all up, I would say, like, the biggest takeaway for me is just to say that you got to be stronger and tougher mentally, and that if you're tougher mentally and stronger here, it's going to correlate to here. It's going to correlate to your leg strength. It's going to correlate in all facets of your life, especially like if you're facing a rough patch in a relationship or something. If you can talk it out instead of getting mad at people, or sitting down and having that ability to say, like, we'll get through this, you'll be better off in the long run. You'll literally flourish in every other facet of your life, not just in sports and stuff, but you'll have those mental receipts to get through anything else. So I hope that was useful to some people. That's just how I dealt with doubt, with adversity, with struggles and setbacks. And I hope someone can take these key points away and use them towards their own struggles, their own adversity, their own setbacks, to stop doubting themselves and putting more worth into yourself, because you can do it. You're special. You're great. You're the best. If you're not the best, you are going to be the best, because after you keep working on yourself day after day, that's what you're going to do. You're going to be the best version of yourself that you ever did. You're going to look back 10 years from now and say, hey, look how far I've come. Just like me in 1st grade when I couldn't read, and to now be reading the black letter law in law school and understanding how to read statutes. You're going to be that person. You're going to be that success story, and you're going to pass it down to someone else to show them and give them the encouragement and support to know that they can do it too. So I hope that was helpful, and thank you for watching.